Now, before I start off with anything, I believe that it's important for me to lay out my stance on comic books in general, of where I sit with comic books. Now look, I love comic books. I am hesitant to call myself a huge comic book fan or a huge comic book nerd. Cause for me, I don't have a huge stacks of comic books in the corner of my room. I don't. In a box somewhere. Or I have continuously been reading comics for years and years and years. But I do appreciate the medium. I remember reading The Dark Knight Returns for the first time. And it gave me goosebumps. The direction they went with Batman, the way they explored the character of Bruce Wayne was, it just gave me chills. I didn't think they would go in that direction, but it was beautiful. I know people would disagree with me, but I always say this. I still firmly believe that The Dark Knight Returns is one of the best Batman comics that I've read. Also comics like Civil War, because comic books like these focus on the characters. It really pushes them to the breaking point. How would these characters overcome the challenges in front of them? Or how they grow as characters? This is why I absolutely love DC Rebirth, because it's bringing back those aspects to the story, to the comic books themselves, because it actually got me reading comic books again. Way before DC Rebirth was released, it was in that time frame where I stopped reading comic books entirely. I stopped reading comic books because I'm gonna say it, because to them, not just DC, but to Marvel as well, especially to Marvel, they believed that there was this idea in Marvel and in DC, but now still in Marvel, is that diversity was more important than the content of the characters themselves. It took me a while to figure this out. It took me a while to figure out why I stopped reading comics. And it was for this reason. Because diversity, for diversity's sake, was more important than the character's growth. It took me a while, but this is what made me stop reading comics. And then, when I look back, it was this SJW mindset that the color of the person's skin was more important than the characters themselves. This is why I just stopped reading comic books entirely. Like, for example, look, here are the things that made me just stop me reading comics in general. The gender politics, for one. The sex changes, for one. And the race changing. And and demonizing someone for having a different opinion. What I mean by that is, look, I'm just trying to think of an example of that one. For example, here's one. When I talk about the different opinions. For the life of me, I forgot which one it is, but it was one, I think it was one of the Captain America books, where you guys must have seen it, with the Red Skull, where he was in this small room and he was just talking over people, and basically saying how culture is important, how the ideals that the nation was founded on was important, on how the ideas and the principles that everyone in the nation believes in is being eroded away in the name of tolerance, and if you speak out against it, you are a bigot. And I'm just reading, and I'm just like, hey, oh, Hydra? So wait, this is bad? What the fuck is going on? And I'm just thinking to myself, isn't the Red Skull a bad guy? Because when I was reading that speech, it just harkens back to a comic book that my friend showed me. You guys will know it. It was a Captain America comic book. And I think was he talking to Spider-Man? I assume he is. I completely forgot. It's been ages. And he basically says that famous line where if the entire country tells you to move, you plant your feet down and then you say, no, you move. It's similar to that. And I'm just like, isn't Red Skull a bad guy? Is this how people in charge of comics nowadays view this idea? It is somehow like Nazi, and it just blows my mind. I'm just turning around like, am I the weird one here? And it's just fucking crazy. And the race changing thing. And the thing I can't stand is the race changing thing is that it's not consistent. Like, for example, if a character like Black Panther, for example, if Marvel decided to turn him white, there would be like an outrage of people calling it whitewashing. And to be fair, I would agree. But if it's a white character, like, for example, I'm just pulling out of a hat, like Deadshot, for example. Deadshot, who was white, and they changed him to a black guy, then that's diversity. And I'm like, don't you see the double standard? Don't you see the hypocrisy there? Cause diversity, I hate how they use it. Cause diversity in this context should mean adding racial characters, not swapping characters, which drives me insane and is fucking lazy. If you want to add a person of color, into your comic books or into the universe in your comics, then make new characters. Why do you need to change already established characters? Because that's lazy for one, and it just feels wrong. It would feel wrong the same way as if Marvel changed Black Panther into a white person. It's stupid and it's lazy and it is insulting. Same with changing the character's gender. Why can't you just make new ones? Why do you need to change any established character? It just makes no fucking sense. And it was one of the reasons why I just stopped reading comic books entirely. Because they're changing the characters solely for diversity's sake. Which I just can't. I just can't. I mean, you know what? Fuck this comic book. And then when I read DC Rebirth, they actually bring in the old characters back. It was so nice to see Wally West back. And it was just like, yes, the Wally West that I know, that I grew up in. It was just, it was so nice to see. And I read somewhere that DC Rebirth sales are climbing. And I was like, yes, this is exactly why people love old characters. People don't mind diversity. Well, the diversity that I explained, not what the SJW's idea of diversity. People are not against diversity, well, natural diversity, but people are against forced diversity. When you're just trying to do it for the sake of it, it's annoying as fuck, and it just turns people off. Yeah, this is one of the reasons, well, if I'm going to be honest, one of the main reasons why I stopped reading comics. But I'm getting back to it, thanks to DC Rebirth. Marvel, not so much. Yeah, that's all. That's all that I got for this topic. Peace out.